And boom, he faces down Andrew Cuneo, who has brought a pure Dimir control deck to the battlefield here, Paul.
Yeah, it's
like a nightmare.
This is basically the worst possible matchup, I would say, for Luis. Game one, he's just going to have to hope he doesn't draw any of his removal spells and draw all action. But, I mean, just kind of coming into this Abzan midrange deck was built to play against Jund. And I think only Jund, because I think he jokingly had told us, this deck is like 80% against Jund, and probably 40 or 30% against everything else.
Right.
Well, Andrew is about as far away from Jund as you can be. And yeah, he has a huge uphill battle here against Andrew Cuneo.
Right. When you sleeve up a deck like Pigblade here for Luis, you're making some assumptions about the format. One, that you're going to see a lot of Jund. Turns out they were right. That ended up being the most popular deck here. Great. Check that box. But you're also assuming that you're not going to face very many pure control decks, right? And that's because Historic doesn't have that many of those, right? We've seen some success with blue-white in the hands of Bradley Barkley, but you know, that was kind of a flash in the pan. That isn't the type of deck that you'll face very often in the queues. And this deck, you never see. Dimir control.
Never.
Like, if you play against that, you're like, what is going on here? But this is Andrew Cuneo. This is what he lives for. He loves countering spells. He loves holding up his mana. He loves Drago, and he's going to build it in every format no matter what.
He's just like, you know, I mean, look, you just got to keep running things out. Like, real honestly, all you got to do is just keep running things out and just really hope that Andrew just runs out of ways to respond to what you're trying to do.
And now he's on Night of the Autumn Beatdown is his plan.
Look at his hand. It looks good, right? I mean, it's got 2 bindings, a Mythos. You have lots of removal. Guess what removal is bad against? A pure Dimir control deck here from Andrew Cuneo.
Yeah, we may see Luis run out of binding the old gods at some point just for the second chapter alone. Like, it is going to get pretty ugly here for Luis, and you can see why.
Yeah, and I mean, Cuneo's playing Sublime Epiphany here as well. I mean,
this is over. Like, right? Like, looking at what we can see here, like one card draw spell for Cuneo, which he's going to get value from Epiphany, but it's just, I don't know where he's going to go from there.
Yeah, I mean, if Cuneo can, because he's playing 3 Torrential Gearhulks in his deck, if he can just find one of those Gearhulks,
yeah,
and you know, basically use that to chain the Sublime Epiphany, I mean, he's just going to be way too far ahead. And right now, I mean, Luis has a plan at least, right? I mean, he's just trying to beat down, and but at this point, I mean, Cuneo's even out racing him here with, you know,
he's going to turn on. Yeah, he's going to turn on his Fatal Push here by using Field of Ruin, and then that'll allow him to take out a knight right now.
Then he can eliminate the other knight.
And then he can just eliminate the other one and have Sublime Epiphany. It's basically the exact scenario that Andrew Cuneo lives for. Like,
oh, there it is.
That's if only he could find that Torrential Gearhulk to back up the Sublime Epiphany. Boom, right off the top of the library.
Luis, I mean, you got to play a Magic card, but I like how the Cyborg graphic is already coming up, as we know that this one is likely over very soon.
Whoever's in charge of our Cyborg graphics is seeing the same thing we are, I think.
Yeah, they know.
In the meantime, Binding the Old Gods goes on the stack, threatening this shark, but it is going to get Sublime Epiphanied. That's going to create another copy of the shark here. And, oh, there's a Mythos of Nethroi to take out one of the sharks. Okay.
Yeah, but
I wonder if Luis, I wonder how this sequencing goes there. If he plays that land first, can he Mythos in response, kill the shark and prevent the copy? Perhaps, ooh, a Mirius Call, but the Torrential Gearhulk still looms.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to just be so tempting. You just gear like what the thing is. What can Luis do? I guess he's just gonna go for an end step here, as Luis probably doesn't have a whole lot of instant speed ways to kill a Gearhulk outside of the Mythos, and he's only got 2 in his deck.
And it's a lethal threat. So Andrew Cuneo picks up game number 1 in impressive fashion there. It played out exactly how he thought. Now, you know, typically speaking, decks like what Luis have with his Abzan build here are, well, they have a lot of flexibility in the sideboard, right? I would say Abzan might be the color trio that has the most potent sideboard options. Is that going to be a factor here for Luis? Can he actually turn this deck into something that can compete with what Cuneo's brought to the table.
Yeah, it's kind of tricky though, because Luis is also playing a deck with Yorion, so he's playing an 80 card deck.
Ugh.
So there's a very good chance that Luis just simply doesn't have enough cards to swap in and out, just because he might just have way too many removal spells because he has to put a certain number to fill out his 80 card deck. So there are cards. He does have 3 copies of Shifting Ceratops, which should do a good amount of work. Now it is worse against Dimir. I think kind of coming into this tournament, nobody expected Dimir control, but a lot of people expected Azorius control. And when you play against Azorius control, they don't have a lot of good ways to kill Shifting Ceratops. So, but Andrew does. So, given that Andrew knows that Luis has that as an option, you should expect Andrew to keep some number of removal for the Ceratops. But yeah, I mean, looking at a sideboard, I just see more removal spells. I see 4 Legion Zen, 2 Yeheni's Expertise. I just see the 3 Shifting Ceratops and 1 copy of Necromentia, which I imagine is going to be used to target the Torrential Gearhulk that Andrew Cuneo has in his deck.
All right, well, Thoughtseize is going to kick things off here for Scott-Vargas. He has a very steep hill to climb, really getting not only his bad matchup, but a matchup that theoretically doesn't exist, right? This isn't even on the radar for the metagame when you're thinking about Historic. So this is really the worst case scenario for him. And if he can pull a win by winning these next 2 games, it would be quite miraculous for him. Let's see if he can do it. You see the Shifting Ceratops in hand, and he also just resolved Mazemind Tome, so he'll be able to grind with that, potentially. You can see he's also being careful here. Oftentimes you'll see players use it right away whenever they can, basically just thinking that, scry, whatever, I'm going to get through this thing as quickly as possible, get my value while it's on the battlefield. But Luis recognizing that this is a long-term attrition game and he needs to activate it for cards basically every time he can.
That was a little bold, I want to say. He did not have land number 3. So I was surprised that he didn't go for the scry end of turn just to ensure that he gets a land on top. And trying to get every last bit of value here out of that Mazemind Tome. But if he missed on that Mazemind Tome activation, I mean, that would have been huge.
Oh, God. Here's Narset Parter of Veils now. So Luis is going to have to start using the Mazemind Tome not on his turn unless he wants to go for the scry, which he's going to do.
Now his Wall of Blossoms gets shut off. And it's really important for Luis to hit land number 4 here so he can run out this Yasharn.
Interesting. He sees Shifting Ceratops, one of his most powerful cards, and a card that he actually has 2 copies of access to now. And remember, this is his 80-card Yorion deck, so finding 2 of the 3 Shifting Ceratops is a big game. Now, it does cost him his land drop for the turn, but he had Mythos of Nethroi to take care of Narset and kind of stem the bleeding there. So back on track for Luis. How do things look from Cuneo's side? He's running 4 copies of Sot coming, and we see one of them get foretold here.
Yeah, Luis, as you can see, a little bit disappointed there. Really, really wanted to find a land here. Even if he finds one now, I mean, that's still okay. But, he's going to be leaning really heavily on these Shifting Ceratops that's in his hand. And currently, I mean, Andrew's hand is all counters. So he does not
So
have
Big Shifty could
answer.
actually get the job done here?
Potentially, yes, especially if he can find a land.
Yeah, give it haste, but he didn't find it. He found another wall. So now he's going to have to decide on cast Shifting Ceratops, say go, or go for like double Wall of Blossoms.
Yeah, and now that this Shifting Ceratops is putting on a clock on Cuneo, you're going to see him probably cycle the Shark Typhoon and just look to see if you can find something like a Vraska's Contempt or a Heartless Act.
And that's exactly what we see.
Act.
So yeah, there's a Shark Typhoon for 3 here. And what does he find? A Fatal Push.
That gets it done.
That was one of the cards. Wow. Fabled Passage in hand as well to enable the Fatal Push. As Cuneo decides, when do I need to do this? Is there a...
Can you imagine next turn if Luis finds
Don't
Forest?
Even say it. Don't say it,
If Luis
Paul.
finds a Forest and goes Ceratops attack with both and they both get Fatal Pushed on the same turn?
This is Sparta
He's
times
looking
2.
for it.
I can't do it.
Oh.
Look at Cuneo. He knows too.
There it is.
Man. There's a green untapped source.
Oh, this is going to be savage.
And there it is. Shifting Ceratops on the stack. Then Overgrown Tomb to give it haste. Oh, no. And Cuneo.
No, Luis.
Oh, this is hard to watch. Good God. And once that gets cracked, Luis must be like, okay, so I'm going to lose a shifting Ceratops, fine.
But maybe he doesn't have 2 fatal pushes.
Maybe there's not 2 of them. It is honestly just hard to engineer a worse matchup in Historic than Pigblade versus Dimir Control. These are 2 fringe decks. The Abzan mid-range deck for Luis is one that's basically new to the format here. You know, there's been different builds, but this is the first time we've seen this particular one. And then as we mentioned before, Dimir Control just kind of doesn't exist in the format. It's just not really a thing.
Yeah, and Cuneo at this point doesn't really care about the 4/4. Just going to cycle Shark Typhoon and put Luis on a 2-turn clock here with triple counterspell backup.
Yeah, just he'll have 8 power in the air. Luis is only at 14. And that's coming in next turn, by the way, for Cuneo. And as you mentioned, all the counter spells. It's funny because the players kind of, you know, switched roles a little here. Cuneo's playing a bit of a tempo game, and he's going to be able to defend his board state here and get the job done against Luis, who I guess mercifully escapes with a short round, so he can at least go have a snack, go for a walk, pet the dog, whatever, because this matchup was a nightmare from the get-go.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is about as bad a matchup as you would expect. And Luis even drew his sideboard cards, right? He drew both of the Ceratops, and I mean, that was kind of his plan. And honestly, it was looking like it could work.
Totally.
Because Cuneo had no removal spells in hand, but then he was able to find back-to-back fatal pushes with the Fabled Passage, and you know, that got him there.
Luis loads up the good game emote and fires it off once the counterspell hits, and that is a quick 2-0 for Andrew Cuneo, who, by the way, is coming into this last